So I have had this sinking feeling as of late. Car manufacturers, no matter where they're based, are afraid of the following. A lot of power here going to only the wheels back there. Now, why do I say this? Well, if one wants anything even remotely interesting, they are force-fed all-wheel drive. Now, yes, there are few exceptions, usually limited production runs, that are incredibly expensive. Yet, there has been one exception lurking amongst all this all-wheel drive craziness for many years now, the M3. However, even that is changing. Okay, so let's say for the sake of discussion, someone wants all-wheel drive in an M3. How do they spec it? Answer, only as a competition. That means that the M3 all-wheel drive is only on offer with the S58, the 3-liter turbocharged inline 6 with the higher horsepower output, meaning 503 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque. Now, I don't think anybody's going to complain about more horsepower, so effectively you can't get it in the basic M3 and one can't have it with a manual transmission. Now we need to get to some of the changes here, which is the all-wheel drive system. And yes, the engineers say it is rear biased. But what exactly does that mean? It's very different from all those baby buggy crossovers we drive. Here, when they say rear biased, it means it's only rear-wheel drive until it needs torque going to the front wheels. So think of it as like an on-demand all-wheel drive system that you really don't have like a transfer case for. There is a multi-plate clutch in between the front and rear systems of the car. Now, something interesting about this vehicle, it borrows a page from the M5, meaning there's four-wheel drive, kind of like we just described. Then there's four-wheel drive Sport, which is more performance-oriented, more torque to the rear. And then there is that two-wheel drive, meaning one can force it to only send the torque to the rear wheels. Now that also shuts down the dynamic stability control. It's more for use cases like we are going to do today on a track. Now, how does all this impact the performance figures? And there, it's 0 to 60 that makes the biggest difference. If you remember the Competition M3 we drove a couple of months ago, that was 0 to 60 at 3.8 seconds. This is 3.4 seconds. VMAX, that really hasn't changed. 155 miles an hour, or depending on how it's equipped, 180 miles an hour. Once again, back in thermal California. Now, technically, you and I have already driven an M3 Competition, but we haven't driven an M3 Competition, A, on a track, or B, one that weighs an additional about 100 pounds because of the all-wheel drive system. 3,990 pounds, or depending on you express your weights and measures, 1,810 kilograms. With that, track mode. Oh yes, a little bit of delay there. Oh no, about 4,000 RPM. No delay. It just goes. This, we really should have driven this on a track the first time we drove it. God, that was a $135. Yeah, that was a $135. Oh, okay, so we just have to revisit the way this thing delivers power, because in reality, it's the same engine. They really haven't changed anything except for some of the tuning, as well as adding the torque to the front wheels. So the way it delivers power is more explosive than M3s that have come before it. This is closer, I said in the first episode with the M3 Competition, it's closer in the way it delivers power to that of a Porsche, not a BMW or, say, a Mercedes. Part of this is the transmission. I am not an automatic transmission fan. I'm definitely not a fan of those that have torque converters. But this is about the best out there, and it's not just the transmission, because they don't make it, ZF does. It's the tuning. And we know that because we've had this very same transmission in other cars, namely from England, and they're okay. They just don't deliver power like this. Like, here we go again. This is like full taps. Great high-speed stability. God, this thing. I can't honestly tell you there is a huge difference in the way this thing drives from the sedan. I don't notice the extra 100 pounds. It's not that big of a difference. In today's day and age, I kind of expect, 200? Oh, those brakes making some noises. Anyway, I kind of expect maybe 250 pounds of weight differential. but it's rare you notice it. This, with a car that weighs almost 4,000 pounds, are you really gonna notice 100 pounds? Or are you really gonna notice how big of an achievement it is to put all of the componentry to make an all-wheel drive system work and contain it to only 100 pounds? I think that's the win here. And really, this isn't about a difference in the way it drives. Yeah, when you and I get into like an M5 and we switch off the torque to the front wheels, there's a slight difference in the way the steering feels. Here, I can't honestly tell you that there is a whole character personality difference. I think this thing is here, I hate to say it, for business reasons, for sales reasons, because let's be honest, freaks like me in Southern California, I'm gonna buy the two-wheel drive. That's my jam, that's what I want. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game, Mind the Absence game, with today's contestant, the first ever BMW M3 with an all-wheel drive system. That is a pretty big deal, and it comes with a pretty big price. $76,900. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, if this were an M3 two-wheel drive with a manual transmission, it would be $69,900. If this were a competition two-wheel drive, it would be $72,800. Put another way, we are paying $4,100 for the all-wheel drive system. That must be very fancy multi-plate clutches. Anyway, we press on to the color. Frozen dark gray metallic. It's good looking. It's not my cup of tea, but it's definitely good looking. Is it $4,550 good looking? I guess for an individual paint job, yes, I would go for the blue of the one we drove previously. Interior, that's interesting. It's the Silverstone with the black leather interior, $2,550. Then the Park Assistance Plus package. This is all the Park Assistance stuff we normally would get, plus a drive recorder, $800. Then there's the executive package. We had this on the previous one. That's the heated steering wheel. That is the power trunk lid in a small trunk like this, and a head-up display, $1,800. Then the xDrive Pro package, that's $900. The carbon ceramic rotors, not cheap, but $8,150. Then there's the carbon fiber trim, that's on the inside of the car, the dashboard, that is $950. Then there's the M carbon bucket seats. These, a lot of people complain about these. These I absolutely love. The only thing they do need is an adjustable lumbar support, but still worth $3,800. Then we press on to the M drivers package, $2,500, well worth it, because that raises the VMAX from 155 to 180. Then the M carbon fiber exterior package. So that's the mirror housings, the diffuser in the back, and of course that roof, $4,700. I think I would want the sunroof. Then the only other additional item you and I would add is the destination and handling von München, Deutschland for $995, which brings us to a total retail price of $108,545. A couple of notes about this thing, whether it's two-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, because this is our first time driving it on a track. It is remarkable that a car that has a longer wheelbase is almost 4,000 pounds. It can go around a track like this. I wouldn't call it totally neutral handling, but it's about as good as one can get in a car of this size. It no longer feels like M3s that came before it. And one of the things that's so unusual about this experience, this is the all-wheel drive, and the steering, it's got a really good feedback to it, but you don't feel like the all-wheel drive system is fighting with you for control of the car. So the personality between the two-wheel drive and the four-wheel drive is contained without losing the, I guess, the presence of the way these things are on the road. It's a totally different M3. I think that's the best way to put it. Like, I was kind of surprised when I first saw the dimensions and all the stuff on paper for this car. I'm like, man, that thing's gonna be a handful getting around a track. As you can see, it can absolutely be thrown around a track. Granted, that's a combination of the tuning of the vehicle from M GmbH, but also the brakes Here, this one's fitted with a carbon ceramic rotors, adds a bit more confidence. I still would have a hard time speccing an $8,000 or $9,000 option on a car that's already encroaching on 100 grand. It's good on a track if that's the mission. I'd say, yeah, carbon ceramic rotors, but BMW, they do about the best steel high performance rotors in the business. I will admit, I am not a huge fan of the all-wheel drive craze, but then again, I live in a place where I don't need all-wheel drive. So I get the logic behind it, and here, with knowing that, I have to say this is very good. And the reason why it's very good is why it's important. It's not invasive. There's an all-wheel drive system there, but you really can't tell the difference between it and a two-wheel drive M3. Put another way, it has all of the same goodness that makes that M3 so different from M3s that came before it. The all-wheel drive just makes it, frankly, a better business case for the company who manufactures it. Which brings us to the wish list. And here, it's not just for BMW, it's for every other car manufacturer around the world that wants to force feed us all-wheel drive systems in cars like this, equations of very high horsepower. Can you borrow a page from Mercedes and BMW and do this multi-mode all-wheel drive system where we can switch off the torque to the front wheels? I get it. You're afraid of the liability. Maybe have a signed document saying we won't sue you if we switch off the torque to the front wheels, but it just makes it a more interesting vehicle, and the execution of this with a torque going only to the front wheels in need, this one is almost better than some of the systems we've experienced in Porsche and Mercedes. So can we borrow this and put it in other vehicles that have the same equation? That's basically my ask in the wish list. And this is the point of the episode where I turn this around to you guys to opine in the comments below or via our social media. MotoManTV, all one word. MotoManTV, all one word. A little bit behind the scenes here. I shot this, as you saw, on a track in November of 2021, and all the bits you're seeing here in the hangar, we did in January 2022. So it took 2 years to shoot this episode. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später.